Today, you're gonna learn how to develop black and white film at home. Maybe you've done it before, maybe you haven't. Regardless, I'm hoping that I can share some of the tips and the tricks that I've learned about developing black and white film at home. There's nothing to be scared of with developing black and white film at home. I'm developing here not in a dark room, just in my kitchen in full daylight, and I don't need anything too crazy in terms of preparation, but I'm just gonna walk you through everything that you'll need to know to do in order to properly develop black and white at home. Now, today I am going to be developing a 120 roll of film, two of them actually, black and white obviously. The principles and everything that we talk about today are gonna basically be the same if we're doing 35. So the only difference is the size of the reel. So these are for 120, I'll walk you through that in just a minute. You'll just need a smaller reel or ones like this that convert. And the only other difference is how you get the film off of the reel. So I'll walk through that as well in just a moment. So there are a couple things that you're gonna need. First of all, you're going to need a dark bag. So this right here, it's almost like a big giant t-shirt with no hole for your head. And the whole point of this is that you put everything in here, and I'll show you this in just a moment. You put your hands in, and that's how you load your reel. So speaking of which, you're going to need a container like this. This is a Patterson tank, and these are the reels that I'm gonna put in it. And then I have a lid here that goes on top that keeps it light tight. So you basically load your film in here in the bag, and then you take it out, and then this is what we're gonna do for all of our developing. So that's why you can do it in the daylight. So you'll need that, you'll need your changing bag. We'll get back to that in just a moment. But on top of that, I'm just going to get my cloth laid out here. So on top of that, you will need developer. That's the first step. There's basically 3 steps. Developer is the first step. I'm using HC110. There's lots of great developers out there, but that's my weapon of choice. You will need a stop bath. So I use the Ilford Ilfo stop. There's many other versions. This is nice and cheap, so I like it, works for me. I'll talk a little bit about how you mix it in just a moment, but I have that. And the third step is fixer. So again, I'm also using Ilford fixer. So we're gonna go rapid fixer. So we go in there. So basically, you're gonna go 1, 2, and then 3, and then you're gonna rinse, and then you're gonna hang it up to dry. So I will walk through exactly how to do each of these steps right now. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about developer, and I'll keep this really, really quick. HC110 it's what's called a one-shot developer, meaning that as I go to develop a roll of film or rolls of films, I'm only gonna use this once. So I'm gonna mix it up, I'm gonna dilute it. Now, HC110, you use just a very, very small amount, like 15 milliliters for 2 rolls of 35 millimeters. So you're using very little. This tank will last forever. This bottle will last forever. So you mix this up fresh every single time you develop. The stop bath, you're gonna mix up once, and it's probably gonna last you 20 or 30 rolls of film. So I'm actually not gonna mix it today, but you're gonna mix it based on the instructions on the bottle. It's very simple. So this one is saying I'm mixing 1 to 19, meaning that 1 part stop bath of this concentrate, 19 parts water. So what I do to calculate that and to figure that out is I actually go 1 plus 19, so 20, and how much water do I need? So I usually just mix 1,000 milliliters by default because my jugs hold that nice and handy. So I basically take, if I empty this out, I take 1 plus 19, so that's 20. I go 1,000 divided by 20, so that's gonna give me how much of this I need, and then the rest of it's gonna be water. So really quickly, based on those calculations, I'll get my little handy calculator out here. So I'm gonna go 1,000 divided by 20, so that's giving me 50. So I basically need 50 milliliters of this, and the rest is gonna be water. Now I use distilled water, so I'm gonna need 950 milliliters of water, of distilled water, 50 milliliters of this. I pour both of those in a cylinder like this. I mix it up using a fancy little mixing stick here, and that makes my stop bath. I basically take that, I pour it into my container here, and I've got now mixed stop bath. This will last me 30 rolls, 40 rolls of film. It lasts me a long time. I basically, when I change my fixer, I change my stop bath as a rule of thumb. and we're good to go. So that gives me my now stop bath. I don't have to mix that every time I develop film. developer is the only one I mix each time. So I will bring out that and put away the, there we go. Fixer is basically the same thing. So this is 1 plus 4. So it's gonna be, you're gonna need a bit more of this every time that you mix. So if I do my 1,000 milliliters divided by 1 plus 4, so that's 5. So that's 200. So I need 200 milliliters in here of this concentrate, and the rest, so 800 milliliters, will be distilled water. Mix that up, and I am done for 30 or 40 rolls of film. That makes my fixer. So there is my fixer. So basically every time I come and develop, this is what I'm working with. I get out my concentrate HC110, I get out my bottle of mixed stop bath, and my bottle of mixed fixer. So we have our stop bath and our fixer already pre-mixed. We have our HC110 concentrate ready to go. So I will bring out a beaker here because I will need 1,000 milliliters of developer in order to develop in this Patterson tank. So I kind of get that out, get that ready. I'll mix that in just a moment. The first thing that I do is as I load the film onto the reels. So let's kind of get that out. I'll just put this aside for now. Okay, so again, we have the top part, we have the actual tank itself, which is empty, and we have the reels. Now, these reels come off of this sort of center column, and so I got a whole bunch of these, and that way you can just kind of reuse them and go through them. These specific ones, these are the Patterson reels, and they're interchangeable. So I can turn this from a 120 reel into a 35 millimeter reel, and all you do is you push that way, kind of unlocks, and you push it down and you relock it. And so now it's good for 35. So I can now use this for 35 if I need to, or again, for today I'm doing 120. So I will open it up and go into 120. And so there's my reels there. So basically what I do as I'm getting ready to develop here is I will get all this ready. I put my tank with the lid on it. Just this is my routine. Everyone has their own little routine of how they do it. I'm gonna get that ready, and I will get my changing bag out here. And I like to keep things organized in my bag here because things can get a little bit chaotic, especially if you're loading lots of film. And so I'm going to show you actually what I do outside of the bag, and I actually have a burner roll here that I'm going to show you exactly what I do in the bag when my hands are in there when it's dark, but you're going to see it in the light. So what I do is I put the tank right here in this part of the bag. I put my rolls, whatever rolls need to be, so this is like incoming. I put them on this side of the tank, and then I actually take these off of the center column and put those right there, and then I put my center column right there. And so this is sort of how I keep things organized. Now when I'm doing 35 millimeter, I also have a pair of scissors and I have a bottle opener, and I usually leave that sort of sitting up here. I need the bottle opener in order to open the bottle here, or the bottle, to open the cassette, and then the scissors to cut, because you've got the little tails on them. But I don't need that for 120, so I won't show that right now. So basically this is what I do, and then as I'm doing it, I take this, I take my film from over here, I do my thing, I load it in here, I go like that, and then when I'm done this, I put it on the center column. Once I do the second one, I open this up, and I put this in. Again, this is all in the dark that I'm doing this. Don't do this in the light. And put that on and lock it, and we're good to go. That's when I can now come out of the bag and into the light. Now, what I'm going to do, like I said, is I have a burner roll. So I am going to show you exactly what I would do in the dark bag, but in the light so that you can see it. Okay, so we are back reset. Here's my burner roll. So I have this over here. So this typically, normally, would all happen in the dark with the flap closed, the zipper closed. Don't do this in the light, you will ruin your film. I'm showing you for the purposes of this video exactly how to load this in the dark. So I take this, so this is what I would be doing in the dark, is I take this, I open this up, and I actually go like this. So I fold this under, and I just sort of, again, this is my routine, you can figure out your own routine, but I just sort of fold like that, and with these fingers, I'm sort of just going like this, waiting until I feel the bit of the film, because this is still just backing paper right here. So I go like this until I feel, and I already feel it right there. So there it is. So there's the film right there. So I go like this, and now I just start to sort of, I don't ever really want to touch the film, so I kind of keep my fingers like this, and I'm just sort of like gently guiding this along because I want to sort of create the backing papers on this side, films on this side. So I'm kind of just going like this and I'm reeling it through. I always wash my hands before I do this too, just to be sure to not get any oils on the film. There we go. So I'm at the end now. That's the end of the roll. So now I just kind of pull that out, and you're going to see this is now the roll. It's taped to the backing paper. So I kind of just go like this and peel that off of the backing paper. Peel that tape off. There we go. And I always use this top left corner of the bag. When I'm in the bag, I kind of put it in there. It's like my garbage. So when I'm done, that's all the garbage stuff. I can keep things organized. So now I have, there's my film. That's what film looks like. And so there's my film. And so what I would do now is I take this, and on the Patterson reels, there's these little notches right here. That's where the film's going to go in. The film's going to go into the notch, and then it's going to engage with the little ball bearing. And then as soon as it's engaged, I can just go like that, and I can reel it on. So I keep this in my left hand, and I kind of start like this. And I just kind of look for that first little notch right there. And then as soon as I'm in that notch, because I know I'm in the notch, I now kind of ratchet with my thumb here. I ratchet this side back. So see, now I'm in both notches, right? So I don't try to get both notches at the same time. I find it's too hard to do in the dark. It's easier to do right now as I'm looking at it, but in the dark, it's not so easy. So get out of there. So I actually start with, you can see these little knobs here, these little notches. They can go together, which is what they need to be, but I go like this on purpose so that I can get one in, and all I gotta do is feel for one. So I feel for one, and then I go like this, keep my fingers over there, reel it back, and now we're in. So now I go like this. As soon as I know I'm past those two little ball bearings, which doesn't take much to pull, I basically go like this. Now what I do, just to keep things organized and to keep things simple, I put my pinky finger in between the roll here just to keep it so it's nice and lined up. It doesn't get folded in the bag. I go like this, and as I'm doing that, I just start to reel. And I ratchet just like this. And I do that because on my pinky, I can actually feel the roll being taken up, and that way I know I'm not stuck or snagged or anything on the reel. Now, pro tip, these reels need to be bone dry in order for you to do this. I've tried doing it where I'm developing a lot of film back to back and the ball bearings are still wet. Bad idea, don't do it. Make sure they're nice and dry. So there we go. So I've now kind of reeled it all the way up, and I just keep going. There we go. And as soon as we're through, that whole reel or that whole roll of film is now in here. It's all separated. You can kind of see here it's all separated in its own area. So as I put it in here and I start developing and put my chemicals in there, every bit of film gets touched, every bit of film gets developed. So I take that, I put it on there, and if I'm only doing one, I'm good to go. I do the second one next, put it on, go like that. There we are. Put it in. This again, all happening in the dark bag, not out here in the open. There, so now that I'm closed, I always just turn, close, turn. I make sure it's nice and locked, and then I just give it a little jiggle to make sure it's not coming out. Good, because as soon as you come out of the dark bag now to do our developing over here, if any of that film gets exposed to light, you're gonna ruin the roll of film. So you wanna make sure this is nice and locked and loaded. That's the most important part, is to get that done in the dark, and then you're good to go. So that's how you get your Patterson tank all loaded up. I just showed it outside of the bag. I'm now going to go ahead and load my two actual rolls of film, and then I'll be right back. I have my tank all loaded now with two 120 rolls. This is Kentmere 400, and I'm actually pushing this film to 1600. So I shot it knowing that I was going to be pushing it and developing it for 1600. The details of all that is sort of less than relevant for here. It just means I'm going to be developing it for a longer period of time once I get to the developing stage. So let's actually get to that right now. So the first step that we need to do is mix our developer. So in this tank, I know that I need 1,000 milliliters of developer. So I know where that is here on the beaker. And I know that I'm using HC, again, I mentioned earlier, HC 110. I like to use dilution B. There's a whole bunch of dilutions. I like the look of B. It's the most versatile. It gives good times. It's very flexible. So I just pretty much always go with dilution B, which means that for every 500 milliliters of water, I'm using 15 milliliters of the chemical here. and I need to correct that actually. It's 500 milliliters total, so meaning 485 milliliters of water and 15 milliliters of this. So knowing that I'm using 1,000 milliliters total in order to fill this tank, I need to get 970 milliliters of water to 30 milliliters of the concentrate. Now, we do that at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's very, very specific. You need to get it as close as you can to that temperature, because if you don't, then you're going to start to get more contrast or less contrast, or you're going to get thicker or thinner negatives. The temperature of the developer really makes a big difference. So I like just to kind of turn it on to get it a little bit warmer than I will need it. And I just use a sort of instant thermometer here. And I'll basically just keep my finger there. And I kind of have a feeling and I sort of understand where 68 degrees is, but I'll let it get up to temperature here. Guess I probably should have run this early, huh? Oh well. So I'm at 70 degrees right now, and it's just sort of slowly dropping, and this is now where I just make very, very small adjustments on the faucet temperature head there, just to slowly get it down and creep it down closer to 68. All right, so there we are. We're at 68. I'll get 970 milliliters of water now. I always overfill this. And while I have that temperature right, I will also now give the film a sort of pre-rinse. And I always like to do that. I just fill the tank up and let it sit there for a minute while I mix. These are two tools that I like to use that are going to be really helpful to get exact measurements. This is just a little syringe. So I've got my water here, it's at 1,000. So I actually put this in and I pull it back until I hit that. There we go. And I can get nice and precise there. I'm at 970. And this little guy is just like a little medicine cup, and I will use this to measure out my 30 milliliters of HC110. And there we are. So there's my mixed developer. I'll put that cap on. I'll put that away. And my little stir stick, I will now mix. Okay, so this has been in there for about a minute. The pre-rinse, I'm just gonna dump that out. Depending on what film you're developing, T-Max for example, you'll actually see a color come out when you throw that out. Don't worry about it, it's just some of the base and some of the things they put on the film. I'm not a chemist, I don't know that part of things, but you will see a color, pink sometimes. I think on Portra 400, if you're doing color film, it's like blue. Anyways, don't be alarmed. Okay, so that is basically it. We're now ready. So I've got my 2 rolls of 120 in here ready to be developed. I've got my developer all mixed, the right temperature. I'm good to go there. So now what we need to do is just pour in. So again, the steps are developer, stop, fixer. Now timing is very important for the developer, and every developer in every film for black and white has a different combination. So Welcome to the world of figuring out your timing for developing. I use an app and a well-known resource called Massive Dev Chart. And so if I open up Massive Dev Chart, you basically go into the app here and you can choose 35 millimeter, 120 or sheet film. So I go 120, you go and find your film here. So I'll go Ultrafine Extreme 400. You now find your developer. So I'm using HC110 1+31, which is dilution B I talked about. And then you find which ISO you want to develop for. So 1600. And so now it'll tell you you need 10 minutes at 68 degrees. So this app, after you set it up, will now actually say, okay, you need to develop for 10 minutes, stop bath for 1 minute, and fix for 5 minutes. Stop bath and fix are almost always 1 minute for stop bath, 5 minutes for fix, unless I'm doing a T-grain film, in which case I will usually fix for 6 or 7 minutes instead, just because it needs a little bit more time in the fixer. So I've got those set up as 1 and 5. Your results, your mileage may vary, but that's what I've found to be a really good number. So there it is, 10 minutes for developing in HC110B in order to get Ultrafine Extreme 400 to 1600. So we're gonna go ahead and develop that. I'll get started and then I'll kind of fast forward to the very end so you don't have to watch the entire thing. So I kind of keep my timer right here. I keep this here. I'm always doing this over the sink, and I will go ahead. Oh, I almost forgot. I need to get my swizzle stick and my funnel. I'll need the funnel to pour the chemicals back into the stop bath and the fixer container when I'm done, and a swizzle stick. So here we go. I will go ahead and get started. I pour it in. Okay, and we are in. I start my timer and I start to swizzle. So for the first minute, you are going to agitate with the swizzle stick. So this is timing me, it'll tell me when a minute is up, and I'm basically just doing very gentle swizzles here on the swizzle stick. Maybe I'll move it over here so that you can see what I'm doing up top there. There we go. So we have the swizzle stick, and again, I'm just very gently swizzling that for the first minute. Now, once it hits a minute, I'm gonna stop swizzling. I'm gonna give it a nice little sort of heft on the desk here on the countertop, just to kind of make sure all the bubbles are out of there. And I'm gonna put the lid on. There we go. Take the swizzle stick out. There we go. And I just kind of give this a quick little wash. And there we are. Now I can get my lid on it, because now every minute I will be doing 3 inversions. Now again, this is sort of ritualistic for some photographers. Some develop differently. Some prefer to keep the swizzle stick in. Totally depends on what you'd like to do. I like doing 3 inversions at the top of every minute. So I just wait until, and again, you can set that up here in the app as well in Massive Dev Chart. So it'll tell you to start inverting. I've got mine set for 10 seconds of inversion at the top of every minute. So I will just go ahead and do that. And I'm basically doing that until 10 minutes is up. And then when 10 minutes is up, we're gonna go over to stop, and then we're gonna go over to fixer. So waiting here just for the 2-minute mark, and at the 2-minute mark, I will do 3 inversions. So 1, 2, and 3. Now you want to be gentle with this, or maybe not. I was giving a nice little tap at the end. The more aggressive you are with your inversions, if you're like, really giving her, you're going to get more contrast in your image, and you're going to get more grain in your image. The gentler that you are, you're going to get less contrast, and you're going to get less grain. So it just depends. Some photographers and some film shooters like to be a bit more aggressive to get a bit more grain. Some developers will give you naturally more grain. It's a whole world that you can get into. Welcome to the world of developing film, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very simple. So I just kind of go nice, simple, gentle inversions. I've found that it gives me very pleasing tone in HC110 dilution B. And it gives me a look that I'm really happy with, and it's consistent with all of my work. So the most important thing when you're developing film is to find a workflow that works for you, find a look that works for you, and then just stick with that. Stick with that routine, stick with that pattern, do the same thing every time, and that way you get consistent, predictable results. So we're at 3 minutes here on the clock. We got to go all the way to 10 minutes. We're going to go ahead and sort of fast forward all that, and I'll see you at the end of this when we're going to go into the stop bath. So we're at 9 minutes here, and so we're getting close to the 10-minute mark, so I kind of move myself on over back to the sink here. I'll actually take off the lid because at 10 minutes I will want to dump out the developer here. So put that on up there. At 10 minutes I'll dump out the developer, and then we need to go right into the stop bath because the stop bath basically stops the developer from developing the film. That's why it's called stop bath. So I need to get the developer poured out of there right away and then get this poured into the tank to basically stop all the developer from working. So I kind of get that set on up here and ready. I get the lid open and I get ready for it. And at 10 minutes here, I will dump. There we go, 10 minutes. So I dump it on out. All right, and then in goes the stop bath. Now, if you're using a smaller tank, if you're only doing one roll of 120 or one roll of 35 or two rolls of 35, you'll be probably using a smaller tank than this, so you won't need 1,000 milliliters. So obviously don't dump the entire contents of the stop bath in there. But regardless, oh, I guess I gotta start there. There we go. So I'm doing this for a minute. The timing on stop bath and fixer are less than relevant. I mean, they're not irrelevant, but they're not as important as the timing on the developer. Stop bath is about a minute. Fixer, again, 5 minutes. You can't really, you can overfix, but you know, don't stress too much about it. Overfix is if you left it in there for like a really long period of time. If you hit 5 minutes or 5 minutes and 20 seconds, it's not the end of the world. Same with stop bath. If you do it for a minute or if you do it for a minute and 20 seconds, it's not the end of the world. So, you know, and again, temperature on this stuff also isn't relevant. So, or not that it's not relevant, you don't want it to be boiling hot, but you know, you don't have to get it up to be a perfect 68 like you did with the developer. So I'm just doing some gentle agitations here until my timing hits a minute here. And there we go. So I'm at a minute. Just tap that out. That's why I always like to do this by the sink, because I can have easy access to water. So I basically am going to put my funnel into here, because again, I'm reusing stop bath. So stop bath and fixer you can reuse. Like I said, for 20, 30 rolls. You'll know when your fixer stops working because it'll stop fixing and your images will come out with a bit of a purple tint to it. So you'll know at that point you just replenish your fixer. I always replenish my stop bath at the exact same time. So I'm just gonna pour this back in here so I can reuse it. The stop bath is like a nice vibrant yellow, so that's also a good indication, because as soon as it's not a bright vibrant yellow, usually means it's starting to get depleted. So just another indication. Ooh. Okay, so we're all done with stop, so I put stop back away in my little bin. I keep everything in a nice little bin, and that way I can just bring it up and down from the basement where I store it, and nice and easy to use and to work with. You need to still be working in the dark at this point, so I can't open this up yet. Once the fixer is, you're in there for a minute, you're okay to open it up. I always just wait until the very end, just to be safe. So we'll go ahead and move on to the fixer, and same thing that we did with the stop bath, we're gonna do here at the fixer. So I'm going to go ahead and dump this in. Now the fixer, again, is gonna be in there for 5 minutes. So I dump this for the entire contents. There we are. I start my timer, and for fixer, the first minute is going to be agitation, similar to what you did with the developer. So for the first minute, you're doing your agitations with the swizzle stick, and then you're gonna put the lid on, and you're gonna agitate at the top of every minute for 5 minutes. And that's basically your routine for the fixer. So we'll go ahead and sort of fast forward this part, and we'll see you at the end of the fixer when we get ready to rinse the film. Okay, so we are at the 5 minute mark with fixer, so I'm gonna go ahead and, just like we did with the stop bath, gonna go ahead and dump the fixer back out. Okay, and there we go. So right now the film is developed and fixed, and there are images in that tank. And if you opened it up and looked at it, you would see them. However, they'd be very smelly because Fixer is very stinky. And so you need to rinse the film now. So what you're gonna do is just, there's lots of methods to do it. I like to just run it under water for anywhere between 8 and 10 minutes. And just kind of let it spill through, and it'll just kind of clean the film, get all the fixer off, get all the chemicals out of there, and you'll be good to go. So I basically am just bringing it over here. I leave the water on cold. I just let it go at a very, very slow trickle, and that's a little bit too slow. There we go. Just like that. I press my timer and it's going to tell me when 10 minutes is up. So I basically let it run for 10 minutes now. It's going to clean it out. And when we're done that, we can basically hang it and let it dry, and then it's ready for scanning or digitizing or darkroom printing, however you're going to enjoy these photos. The only small difference there is you might want to, depending on your water, use what's called photo flow. It's a rinsing agent. You'll use it at the end when you're done all this, and I'll actually show that to you downstairs in the basement bathroom when I'm hanging this to dry. I'm gonna use photo flow, and you just kind of let it swirl around in there for a little bit with some water, and that way you don't have any drying marks or any water spots on your film. It just makes digitizing a lot more difficult, and it makes darkroom printing a lot more difficult because you have these smudges and marks all over your film. So I'll show you that in just a moment, but for now we're just gonna let this go ahead and rinse for the next 10 minutes. So we've transitioned now to the basement. This is just our basement bathroom. This is where I hang the film. I've got this is actually, I forget what this is for, a towel rack, I think, for the back of a door. So I've just got this that I kind of keep on. You may have to obviously MacGyver something for your own space in your own room. But that's what I use. I use these Patterson clips here to dry them. I'll show you in just a minute. But I leave that there. I have a towel down on the floor here, so as it drips, we're okay. So I've got the film, and it's rinsed, it's developed, it's fixed. We're all good to go. I can now open it. So I'm just gonna kind of leave this here. I did mention earlier that you might wanna consider using photo flow. That's what this is right here. And so all I basically do is just put like a tiny little bit in here. Nothing too scientific, just a little bit of a dribble. And then I just fill the rest with water, let it run through there. And just kind of swizzle that around and make sure that you get some of that on everything, on all the film. And that's basically, that's it. Now it's very, very bubbly. I don't know if you can see that here, but very bubbly. No big deal. Go ahead and just pour that out now. And now it's time to look at the film. This is the moment of truth. This is the most exciting part of the whole process because you take the film out and you actually get to see it now. So I kind of keep everything here by my sink. Again, just my own routine. And I will take one roll out here. Again, being very careful that you don't touch the film or nothing too crazy. But there we are. Look at this. We have film. So I will go ahead and take that out. And I will start with the first Patterson clip. I just put that on the top there and hang it on that. And then I put a weighted one, the darker one, at the bottom. And now it's going to be there to dry for a little while. Go on to the next one. And there we are. So second one. So we have images, which is super exciting. It's always the moment of truth and you're like, oh please, I hope everything worked. But again, if you follow the instructions, if you do it the same way every time, you should have no problem. So hope that was helpful for you. That is how you develop film. So I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you will now try your hand at developing your own black and white film at home. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you soon.